Hello and welcome to the Pain-Free Living Podcast. My name's Bob Allen and my aim is to help you to live pain-free. Let's begin. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pain-Free Living Podcast with me, Bob Allen, and
me, Louise Gordon.
I'm an osteopath. I graduated in 2011 and I've been helping people get out of pain or prevent pain from starting since then. And you, Louise?
Well, I'm not an osteopath. So I am a change coach and consultant. So I work with individuals and businesses to navigate change. And I'm here because I like asking lots of questions.
And I'm here because I like answering them. And what are we talking about today, Louise?
Today, Bob, we are talking about kinesiophobia. I hadn't heard of the term kinesiophobia before, but I can identify with kinesiophobia. So, Bob, what is kinesiophobia?
So, Louise, kinesiophobia, as its name suggests, is fear of movement. And if you don't know Latin, you probably wouldn't know that. But yes, kinesiophobia is fear of movement. And it's not a term that's commonly used, but for anyone that's had pain for any length of time, once we get into it a little bit, they will totally relate to what it's all about. So, yeah, like it says on the tin, it is a fear of movement.
So tell us a bit more then about this fear of movement.
I see it a lot with people that have had back pain, but it's any kind of long-standing pain that you may have. It's the body trying to protect itself.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have had a case of chronic back pain, well, even acute back pain, of pain about 3 or 4 weeks or more, what you'll know is that moving in a certain way is going to cause pain. So what you do is you kind of compensate for that by finding another way to move around. So if, for example, bending forward to pick something up off the floor causes pain, what you'll do is you'll probably bend your knees and then pick something up, or you'll sit down and pick something up, or you'll find another way to reduce that pain. That's great because that just gives your back a chance to heal. Movement is good, so not avoiding moving is a good thing. But if a certain movement, a bigger movement, causes pain, you'll reduce the size of that movement. So you'll start to move less, or you'll find another way to move to avoid causing that pain. The problem, when it becomes a problem, is where the issue's healed. Your back's feeling a bit better, you can move more, etc., etc. But the problem is that your brain, that fantastic organ between your ears, will have learned that moving a certain amount will cause pain. So what you do is you move less, and it's that fear of causing pain which reduces the amount of movement you got. So that is the definition of kinesiophobia.
Got you. And I guess then a lot of people must have kinesiophobia. I know, having had an injury, you naturally avoid doing anything to put extra stress on an injury. And, sometimes injuries take quite a while to heal.
Yep.
And then you find that you actually are getting aches and pains somewhere else as a result, because you're maybe walking slightly different. And I do totally understand about the back pain, that you really don't want to have that anymore, so you will avoid doing things.
Yeah.
You don't want to aggravate it.
Absolutely. And you can see it with sports people. So when a sportsman has an injury, they'll have a hamstring tear or something like that. The advantage that they've got is a professional team with infinite amounts of money to give them massages, physio. They'll have sports psychologists, all to help them overcome that fear of pain or a pain problem. Unfortunately, the average person in the street does not have that behind them, so they will then modify their movement to avoid the pain. And then that becomes a habit, because the brain is very, very good at developing habits. The brain doesn't know whether a habit is good or bad. It just knows that by developing that habit, we don't have to think about it and it becomes automatic. It's a bit like, a good example is about learning how to drive a car. As a learner, you get in a car, you then have to think, handbrake, check the mirror, check the side mirrors, all of those things, clutch, brake, all of those things that you have to do when you start learning how to drive. After you've been doing that for a while, it becomes automatic. You don't have to think about it anymore. That's what we call neuroplasticity, and the brain's ability to learn something, and then, you know, basically it's minimizing the amount of energy that the brain has to use to be able to perform that skill. The downside of it does that as well where pain's involved.
And it's a natural reaction.
And it is a natural reaction. It's the body trying to protect itself, but the body isn't clever enough to know that it no longer needs to do that protection. So unless you train, or unless you've got somebody to help you through that, then you're always going to do it. And a classic example that I see a lot is where people have had an ankle injury. Because say you have a severe sprain on your right ankle. What you do is you shift 60% of your weight onto the good side, the left ankle, or the left side, and say 40% on the right side. As the pain reduces and things improve, the weight kind of slowly shifts back. You start getting more confidence in the ankle, and you'll start to use it more. The downside is that unless you then have somebody who can help you to rehab that, you tend to always have an imbalance. So the weight may be 52% on the left, 48% on the right, but it's never quite the same. Ankle sprains can be recurring, and ankle sprains can be recurring because the ankle has never been rehabbed properly. So the good news is that good old neuroplasticity, the way the brain can remember stuff, if you've learned a habit which is not serving you, so like I said, so you're putting more weight on one side than the other, you can also unlearn that habit. You have to deliberately do the training and exercise to do that, but you can unlearn it as well. So the classic with low back pain is that it can last a while. So you learn how to not bend the lower portion of your back. What this can result in is that you've got compensations going on, which can then lead to recurring back pain. And I see it quite often where people will have low back pain once, twice, 2, 3, 4 times a year, because what happens is they get into a routine of something, and then the back decides one day that we're done. It can cause them excruciating back pain for a while. They'll change their habits, but as the pain reduces, they'll go back to the old habits that cause a problem, and it happens again. So what I have to do is to teach them how to use their back properly, and then the problem becomes no problem.
Right.
So yeah, it is possible to unlearn kinesiophobia, but it can take some support from people that know what they're doing to help you through that process.
What's your standard approach then? You've got a client and you identify there's some kinesiophobia. What's your next steps?
Right, so the first thing is to teach them that the movement is actually okay, and that can take a while in itself, because although they may not consciously think, my back, you know, if I do this, my back's going to go. Or actually, a lot of people think that, and it is quite conscious that I won't do this because the last time I did this, it caused this problem. So what I have to do is to find where they are in terms of movement, and then I start from there, and then I kind of coach them through over time with rehab exercises, just conversation to say, okay, when you hurt your back or when you injured this body part, this is what happened. Now, let's get a bit of movement in there. Let's get you moving a bit more, and then you progress that to the point where actually the brain understands that they can do this movement and it's not going to cause a problem.
Right.
So it depends on the person. It can take time, but yeah, it can be done.
And is part of that on the kind of the education side as well, in terms of explaining what's going on? In terms of what their body is naturally doing. Yeah,
and that's one of the things that I always do, is if I'm treating someone, then I will always explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and the benefits of doing it.
Yeah.
For me, that's really key, because it gets you the buy-in from the person you're talking to, and they are more likely to follow your advice than not, because they understand that this is what they need to do to get better, but they understand exactly why they're doing it, as opposed to just giving them a sheet of exercises and say, go away and do those, and you'll be fine. So yeah, exploration, really, really, really important, and that's a big part of what I do.
And so what's your recommendation to anybody listening, watching this, in terms of they're aware that they might now be thinking, I think I've got kinesiophobia, I've injured my knee and I'm aware that I'm walking slightly different. What's your advice?
Yeah, my advice would be to find somebody that can talk you through that. I don't want to shout and advertise my own business, but actually I do. You need to find somebody that actually understands what the problem is, what's going on, and they can guide you through the process for resolving that issue.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much, Bob. Learned something new there.
Thank you, Louise. As always, today's podcast is all about kinesiophobia, fear of movement, because your brain thinks that it's going to cause you some pain. If you've got any questions and you want to know more about kinesiophobia, or if you want some ideas about who you can go and see, because I've got a list of trusted practitioners, so if you're not in my part of the world, I can generally point you in the direction of somebody who should be able to help. If you enjoyed the episode, please tell all your friends and family. Leave some comments on whichever podcast provider that you listen to this on, and we'll see you next time. Okay, we've come to the end of the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a few things, and please tell all your friends, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.